One common thing about movie licensed games on the NES is that they are considered mundane and mediocre.
Speaking of games that are considered trash bag, I'm pretty sure everyone in the world knows about this company, LJN. They are most known for publishing movie-based games on the NES that were considered mediocre to downright abysmal.
Today is Friday the 13th, and we know what's the deal here. Many of us are probably wondering what we're going to fear for, which is our lives, because Jason Voorhees is going to come after us. Now don't get at me, because I'm just only satirizing the day to tie in with the movie, or the franchise as a whole. But anyway, here we have is Friday the 13th, released on the NES in February 1989 by LJN and developed by Atlus. Yes, that is the same Atlus company who is also known for Shin Megami Tensei as well as the Persona series. Atlus was also known for the development of Gotcha the Sport, Town & Country Surf Designs, Wood Water Rage, and The Karate Kid, which all three of them were also published by LJN. Of course, you may have seen people like the Angry Video Game Nerd or the like take a dump on this company in a satirical fashion. And I want to ask myself, why is it taken so seriously by their respective fans? Not so long ago, I have seen the LJN Defenders video about this game, and he even gave it a positive look. Let's see what kidThunder has to say about this. Of course, Friday the 13th for the NES is based on a well-known R-rated horror-slashing motion picture of the 80s. Jason Voorhees is obviously the silent killer who goes after a bunch of random folks, primarily the camp counselors, at Camp Crystal Lake. Though it does seem that the NES game itself is basically a mixture from the movies 1 through 4. Now, this is something I want to figure out right here. In the first 8 films of the franchise, why is Part 4 labeled as the final chapter, and the story obviously continues through Part 8? Maybe it's just something that will throw you off chronologically. Though it even goes on with films such as Jason X, Freddy vs. Jason, and of course a mediocre remake of the first 4 films. But here in the game, Jason gets killed after the 3rd day. In Friday the 13th for the NES, you take control of 6 camp counselors whether they are from the films or not. It is all up to you to see who the silent killer Jason Voorhees is after, and just like what the box art says, destroy Jason if you can. Upon starting the game, it will tell you, use the torch to light the fireplaces. However, that is a big misconception from the get-go. It is actually the lighter that you have to use. Once you light all of the fireplaces up in the big cabins, you will acquire things such as the flashlight and the torch. The flashlight is a must-own should you go into the cave and fend off Jason's mother, who by the way looks very reminiscent to the Medusa heads from the Castlevania series. Once you defeat her, you will eventually acquire the sweater, which you will sustain less damage should you fight Jason in later confrontations. However, fighting Mrs. Voorhees is totally optional. Speaking of Jason, the Jason alarm is generally sounded when he is either after the children or one of the camp counselors. If he kills you and the other counselors or wipes out the kids, it's game over, man. When you begin the game after the first tip, you will notice that you will start the game with a rock as a default weapon. So upgrading the rock to a knife is definitely mandatory, and then a machete, and so on. However, I've seen playthroughs of this game where you can use the quick torch method, which is probably an easy task. The torch in this game is the best weapon to annihilate enemies, including Jason Voorhees himself. But the pitchfork is obviously the best weapon in the game, where it pierces throughout all enemies. However, if you're holding either the torch or the pitchfork, be very careful of getting an extremely inferior weapon, for instance the knife or the machete. And of course, whoever the counselor is holding it better stay alive. The overall design of this game is nothing too special. It's basic for NES standards. Sometimes the map will tell you what direction you're actually going, but it can be a little confusing if you're going left or right, especially when you're in the woods or in the cave. The navigation is flawed, but most of the time you're able to go through the entire playfield anyway. To conclude, Friday the 13th on Nintendo isn't as bad as what everyone makes it out to be. Yeah, granted, it's known to mankind as a poorly developed NES title, and of course the company who had the publishing rights obviously gets shot down to hell an awful lot. However, I can personally say that I have enjoyed this game, and if you were to play the game yourself, it's actually pretty fun, and I really think that you should give this game another chance despite what the gaming public being very harsh on it. As of now, this is kidThunder signing off. Take care, stay tuned for future content, and let's watch out for Mr. Voorhees himself.